Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Tasha's Tales. Today's guest is Lisa, or otherwise Allergy Unlimited on Instagram. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, my name's Lisa. As you said, I have an Instagram account, Allergy Unlimited. I'm a mum of two. I have a daughter who's now 18 who has celiac disease, and I have a son who's 16 who has food allergies, asthma and EoE. And I also work within the allergy community for Equal Eats, and I make translation cards and ID cards for people with dietary restrictions. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Oh, wow, really interesting. What is EoE? Because that's not something I've heard of before.
It's linked to allergies. It's eosinophilic esophagitis, and certain foods trigger the esophagus to swell. It's quite a new condition, so they don't know an awful lot about it. But my son was diagnosed in 2020, so he now has to avoid. He already avoids dairy and egg, and he now has to avoid soya as well because that's what triggers the swelling in his esophagus, which eventually can cause complete swelling, and you can't swallow. You have difficulty swallowing, so.
That
Yeah,
is
we deal with that.
petrifying.
So he's had allergies from birth, pretty much, but the EoE was diagnosed in 2020.
So the reason why I was particularly interested in speaking to you was because both my children have allergies, and obviously children with allergies tend to have the trio of eczema, asthma. So my eldest has an EpiPen, allergies to nuts, and he has asthma. My daughter has eczema and allergies to nuts. And it's a really tricky one, isn't it, trying to navigate life as a mum with children
Oh, yeah.
who, so let's talk about celiac because I'll be honest, that is something I'm not aware of entirely. So what is celiac disease?
Okay, yes. So, yeah, no, like you say, it's so difficult to deal with. So celiac is not an allergy. It's an autoimmune condition to gluten. So gluten is found in lots of different food types: wheat, barley, rye, spelt, oats, and basically it causes problems internally. When you eat it, it causes inflammation, which swell the villi in your stomach, which these absorb all the nutrients from food. So long term, if it's not diagnosed, it can cause a lot of problems, and there's no treatment for it. It's just you have to not eat gluten. Otherwise, you will suffer from lots of problems and long-term conditions as well. So, but a lot of people are not diagnosed with it. It can take a long time to be diagnosed. It's a very common condition in the UK, but people don't know much about it. So, nor did we until it happened to us, and we found out in 2020 when my daughter was diagnosed at 14.
Wow, so your daughter was diagnosed quite later on then, and what led to her diagnosis?
Well, it was actually an accidental diagnosis. It was during lockdown. My daughter was a competitive diver when she was younger, and she'd always suffered with joint problems. And we thought that was just to do from the impact of the diving. But during lockdown, diving was cancelled and the joint pains continued. She was also had a lot of really bad fatigue and heart palpitations and bloating. So I took the opportunity to go to the GP, and luckily we were able to go in and they saw us. They ran blood tests mainly for the heart palpitations, but little did we know that they also tested for celiac disease, and it came back positive, which was a total shock to us.
Okay.
And that set us off on our journey.
So there is a way to diagnose.
Yes,
blood test.
There's a blood test, and then once you have a blood test, that will highlight whether you've got raised markers for celiac disease. And then you have to have a gastroscopy afterwards. But the time between the blood test and the gastroscopy, you have to carry on eating gluten. Otherwise, they can't test you for it. And a lot of people make the mistake of stopping eating gluten because it's causing them problems and they don't feel well. But then you can't get an official diagnosis. So my daughter, when in her blood tests, they came back with over 548, and the normal marker is 15. So it was super, super high. And then when she stopped, she had to carry on eating. She was diagnosed in the summer with the blood test, and then we had to wait till November until she had a gastroscopy. So she had to keep on eating gluten until then. But as soon as they'd done that, immediately, they didn't even wait for the results. They just said, stop eating. We know you got it. It's so high. And then it's taken over 2 years for her to get back to the normal levels. So
And how
yeah,
would you
quite cool.
say its impact? Because that's significant. I can't imagine how much discomfort and pain she must be in. And what were her symptoms? So you've mentioned joint pains. Were there any other symptoms in terms of gut?
Well, the mainly it was fatigue. She did have bloating, but since being diagnosed and finding more out about it, there's other things that we now know would point to her having celiac disease when she was younger. So she had urinary tract infections at quite a young age, which is quite unusual. Nobody picked it up from that, but that can be a symptom. She also had problems with her teeth enamel and a lot of mouth ulcers. But there's so many different symptoms, and a lot of people, it can be confused with IBS. But there's some very young children, they can have a failure to thrive because luckily my daughter didn't have that, or maybe unluckily, because if she had, she would have been diagnosed earlier. I don't know, but they literally don't grow very quickly. They have poor skin and health condition. Things like that can also be indicators of celiac disease because you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need.
And how's it impacted your life since the diagnosis?
I have to say, it's been hard. It's been hard. I mean, I have been used to dealing with food restrictions because of my son for 14 years. But when this hit in 2020, he was diagnosed at the same time with the EoE. So at Christmas, it was awful. I felt like I'd gone back to being a new allergy mum who didn't know anything that I was doing, going into the supermarket, not knowing what we could eat. Bless her, the first day after she was diagnosed, we came home and she had nothing for breakfast because I didn't realize that gluten, it's barley, which contains gluten, is in pretty much every breakfast cereal. So, and she couldn't have bread. So it was a very, very steep learning curve. And then again, we didn't realize quite how serious and how difficult it was, because even the tiniest little crumb can make her really, really, really sick. So, for instance, that we had a barbecue. My husband had toasted some rolls, and we barbecued a burger on top of that, not even thinking that it would have an impact, but it does. It made her sick. It makes her sick for over a week if she gets gluten. You have to look at separate utensils, separate chopping boards, a toaster. She has to have her own spread butter, her own condiments, because any cross contamination, if a crumb gets in there, then she'll get sick. So it does have a really big impact on everyday life. She has a separate drawer for all her own food. Yeah, it's a big change.
You mentioned cross-contamination. That was one of the things, because the very first time that I heard of celiac disease was just in passing. I was chatting to a friend who's a baker, and she said, "Oh, I'm visiting my sister-in-law. I want to bake her a cake, but she's got celiac disease." And I was like, "Oh, what does that mean?" She said, "Oh, it's going to be really tough because I've never baked a cake for someone who's got celiac disease, but it really affects her gut." And
Yeah.
she explained to me that, like you said, even a slight cross-contamination can really, really trigger symptoms. So what about when your daughter's traveling? How do you navigate life with celiac disease when you're traveling?
Well, you're giving me an opportunity to advertise the company I work for, but we make translation cards. So they've been a godsend to us, both with the allergies and with the celiac disease, because we have specific celiac cards and then we can customize to anybody's allergies. And then we have over 50 different languages. So initially we've always went to France when we just were dealing with the allergies, and we always go self-catering because we find that safer, and we got used to doing that. And then we went with the celiac disease, and it was tricky because she loved bread, French bread and croissants. And so we had to navigate that. But then, and we carried on going to France. But this year we went to Italy for the first time as a family. And as I say, the cards were absolutely amazing. And then she's also been on her first girls' holiday away to Cyprus with two friends, which she navigated and booked completely herself. She went in an Airbnb rather than to a hotel. And her friends were happy they self-catered. So it's doable. It is doable, but it takes a lot of planning.
I bet
So
that was a
I'm
proud
very good.
mum moment.
It was a scary mum moment, but also a very proud mum moment. I'm so proud of her. And as I say, she did it all herself, and she booked it all for her friends. And she went to a festival as well, contacted them. They allowed her to take in her own food and drink and go in a separate gate. So, because she was worried when she got there that she wouldn't be able to eat anything because, even if people do cater, then you have to trust them enough that they know what they're doing, that they're not just saying that they can cater for you. So yeah, I'm really, really proud of her. And I feel 4 years in, we've turned a corner. At first, she found it really, really hard. I think with my son, because he's had allergies since birth, it's always been like that. Whereas she felt like it's almost like grieving. She'd lost the way her life was, and then she had to get used to being different to everybody, having to plan, not being able to eat what she wanted to. So it really feels like we've turned a corner this year, that she's really on it at the moment and living life. So
That's lovely. Has she commented on whether it's changed the friendship dynamics?
100%. She's had some, couple of instances. When she was first diagnosed, she had a friendship group, and they went round to a friend's house, and somebody had very, very kindly had catered for her and got gluten-free garlic bread. And one of the girls tried it and said, "Oh, that's disgusting. I don't know how you can eat that." And really, my daughter was very upset. And then, ironically, this girl now has celiac disease as well, we found out. So that was one instance. And then another instance this year, actually, there was a group of friends, and there was meant to be more people, another girl going, but she didn't want to go in an Airbnb because she was used to going in a hotel. So didn't go, and made my daughter feel awkward. But the two that did go, embraced it, and they had a fantastic time. But yes, it is difficult with friendship groups, and you have to, you get to know who your friends are, really. So
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like karma, though.
yeah, I didn't want to say, but
Yeah, talk about karma. Oh my goodness, as if. Do you know the reason why I ask these questions is because I'm really, really fearful of like the impact my children's allergies are going to have on them moving forward. But
Oh,
it really reassures me having these conversations that with the right support and communication, it does get better and it is manageable.
oh, absolutely. And my son as well, he's just finished secondary school. And when he was going up to secondary school, I was terrified. But sorry. But it was a making of him. He hated being different at junior school, and he never wanted to go to the medical room to take his inhaler. But when he went to secondary school, he was able to carry his own EpiPens. They gave him a card that if he wanted to leave the classroom, if he needed to, he could just do that. He bought food from the canteen. So yeah, it's just the confidence. And I think as parents, we can help do that. It's very hard not to wrap them in cotton wool. It's getting the balance between enabling them and giving them independence, but making them aware that also they need to be vigilant. So, but it's doable, I can tell you that, and it's not as scary as it seems.
I mean, let me tell you the thing about EpiPens and Puritans, trying to keep on top of the pharmacy runs, making sure that you've got all the things. I feel like I'm never away from the pharmacy at the minute.
Yeah, I know, especially when you have times when the EpiPen goes out and you have to go around a number of different pharmacies just to try and get them. There was one point my son was having to carry 4 because they didn't have hit them in his what he needed for his size, so he had to carry 4 EpiPens at once, and thank goodness we didn't have to use them. But yeah, it is very hard being an allergy parent. I think it's hard to almost work. I don't think people realize how much you have to do in meeting with schools and school trips and making sure they're included, and parties and family and everything, isn't it? It's a very big job.
Yeah, I mean, my pharmacy gave me an EpiPen, and the expiry date was the month before I collected it. Excuse
Oh,
me. So to anyone listening to this, if you're collecting an EpiPen, please make sure you look at the expiry date.
100%. Yeah, I'm lucky I've not had that happen. I've had them when they've only had a month or so, and you're back again the next month trying to find them, but never. I haven't had it where it's actually run out before. So
You mentioned already that there isn't a cure for celiac disease.
no,
So when your daughter, let's say, has a flare up, how does she control that?
you can't control it. You just have to go with it until it goes. So literally it can take her over a week to recover. She has really painful, it feels like all her insides are swelling, and then she has really bad fatigue, brain fog, headaches, nausea, and literally can take up to a week to feel back to normal. So even when you're okay and you're life is good, you're always worrying. She's always worrying that she might get glutened. And obviously, if you're about to go on holiday or work or when exams was terrible, I was so worried when they've just both done GCSEs and A levels. And I was so worried that she was going to get glutened during that period. So we had to be hyper vigilant to make sure that it didn't happen. That, yeah, it's a big impact.
When you say gluten, does that mean having any contact with gluten?
Yeah. Sorry, that's a term that they use in the celiac community. Yeah, if you've ingested gluten and had a reaction to it, it's being glutened.
See, I'm learning. It's all these terminologies. It's really, really good, isn't it, to have these open and honest conversations and raise awareness.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what I've learned everything from being on Instagram, because I didn't know anybody with food allergies or food dietary restrictions. It hasn't run in our family previously, so I had no point of reference, no support. That's why I started up my account, hopefully, because I had to adapt all our recipes to be able to feed my son. And I thought, if I can help one person, like you say, then it will be a good thing. And also I wanted to just record our recipes and things in one place so that they were there for my children to access as well. But it's been so much more than that. I've met so many people, got so much support, learnt so many things that, yeah, I feel lucky. I think a few years prior to that, before social media, then I don't know how parents coped, really. It must have been really, really hard for them.
But I wonder if statistically the numbers are going up in more recent years. I wonder if this was less of a thing maybe a decade or 2 decades ago. It's just
They do say that, don't they? Especially with allergies, that they've almost doubled, I think, over the last 20 years. So I don't know why that is, but there's definitely, well, almost an epidemic now of so many people that do suffer it. I mean, there's at least 1 to 2 children in every class that have allergies. Celiac, we're quite new to. I mean, my son came home and said he met someone with celiac at college the other day. My daughter on holiday met someone with celiac. So I think it's a bit like, isn't it, when you drive a certain car, then you see more cars, the more you know, the more you come across it. But it's definitely, I think there's a lot more people than ever before
absolutely.
who
With regards to recipes, have you just found, is there any particular website or book that you would recommend that listeners could reach out and maybe gift it to a friend who's got celiac disease?
Becky Excel is is one that we've used. I mean, she's very big in the celiac community and she does a lot for it. And she's now actually on This Morning, she features on there quite a lot, because they were, before Christmas, there was a thing where they kind of belittled people with celiac disease. So they're raising awareness on there a lot more now. She's on there. She's also an ambassador for Coeliac UK. That's a really good resource for people with celiac disease. They have a lot of information, and also because a lot of people find it difficult to get diagnosed in the first place. I mean, they're saying it can take up to 5-6 years because people think it's IBS. A lot of doctors don't know about it. People can also have celiac disease and not really have any symptoms, but the problem is it's not about the symptoms. It's damaging your inside. So even if you don't have symptoms, you shouldn't be, and you have celiac disease, you shouldn't be eating gluten, because there's long-term problems like osteoporosis, fertility problems, iron deficiencies, bowel cancer. So yeah, it's a serious problem. But as I say, those two are really good resources to use.
There's no medication at all, is there? Once you're diagnosed, that's it. There's no follow-up appointments or consultations or medication. That is it. You're diagnosed and you've just got to manage your lifestyle.
I think when you're under 18, my daughter's just transferred over to the adult facility. But when she was under 18, she did have yearly consults with a brilliant gastro doctor, who also sees my son about his EoE as well. So yeah, he was amazing. And they would check her bloods and just check to see how she is and whether there's any ongoing problems or any different things. So I think children are monitored at least once a year from our experience. But as an adult, I don't know yet what's going to happen. I think possibly, depending on, I guess, who our consultant is, I don't know whether she will have regular consults or not. So I'm afraid I can't help you with that one.
No, no, no. It's just good to know, isn't it? Just to get an idea of, the reality of someone who's got celiac disease in terms of what support's out there. Are there
Yeah.
any support groups that you've tapped into?
We haven't actually, but we follow people on Instagram. there's lots of different people, and I, because she's older, I've tended to, I know that she follows a lot of people, younger people with celiac disease. I'm afraid I don't know exactly who they are, but
No, no, don't
I
worry.
think she's found
I,
support from them. So
I think the younger generation are on it with social media, aren't they? Which in some ways is a good source of support and knowledge for them.
yes, yes, and I think also, again, in the old days before this, I think, they would never have met anyone themselves, but even if they don't know anyone at school or at college, they see people online who are living, a full life, doing everything that they want to do, which is inspirational. I mean, I'm so grateful to a lot of the young people that are on Instagram who do have these food restrictions, dietary restrictions, and are showing that it doesn't have to stop you from doing anything that you want to do. So I'm very grateful to those to have access to that sort of information.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to people like you who are, have wealth of knowledge and experience and can share it with us. I wanted to ask about supermarkets. Are there any particular supermarkets that you feel are really user friendly for people with celiac disease or allergies?
I think they're all different, and they all unfortunately, as I'm sure you're aware, you can't just go to one supermarket. You
Yep.
have to go to a number of different ones because they're all good at different things. I think Tesco would have to be our go-to. I love the fact that they also support Natasha's foundation
Yes.
once a year, donate money. So that grateful for that, because Natasha's foundation for allergies, I cannot thank them enough for everything that they're doing. So I love Tesco's. They also are relatively okay. I mean, all free from food is overpriced really, and I wish it was more in line, but it's getting better. But they're good. They're really good. Marks and Spencers are amazing for gluten-free food, but they are really, really expensive. So we always go in and try and find the yellow label stickers if we
Yeah.
can. So at least it helps a little bit. But they have really good tasting food. Asda are good. They have a really good free from section.
Asda
Trying to think of the
particularly
other.
good for dairy free, aren't they? I've kind of
Yes,
experienced them being quite good for dairy free alternatives.
yeah. And they're quite competitively priced as well, I think. Sainsbury's, I don't think have not such a big
No,
range,
no.
personally.
Aldi
Um,
don't at all from my
no,
experience.
no, and it'll occasionally you'll find things, but they're never all in one place, so it's really difficult to access. I like it where at least I don't hate having to trawl through everything. It's hard enough as it is. So a free from aisle is very handy. We do shop outside the free from aisle as well because there's lots of accidentally free from products that you don't need to pay full price for. And that's another good thing that Instagram's good for because there's people that let you know about those. But yeah, I think it's a shame Lidl and Aldi are quite lacking
Yeah,
in
because they're
in
so
the free from food.
affordable, aren't they?
Yes, yes, yeah, It's a shame though. I think
Yeah.
they're missing a trick really, but
I think
there you
they'll
go.
get there
I
though.
know every year they support the vegan and they have vegan stuff in, which is good for us because my son has a
Yes.
dairy and egg allergy, but it's only once a year, so
Yeah, I think they'll definitely get there. I wanted to touch upon the translation cards. You mentioned that they are translated in 50 languages, which is incredible. Do you find it useful when you go to restaurants? Do they tend to be gluten-free friendly?
yeah, I mean, we use them in this country as well. It depends. There's some restaurants that are absolutely amazing for gluten free, and it's getting better and better. And I find it's kind of easier than the allergies, probably, I guess, because it is like a specific food group. A lot of restaurants have like gluten free menus, like Coat will have a completely separate menu for gluten free. Pizza Express are really good for gluten free dining out. But it's getting better and better. But yes, you can use the cards as well. The good thing about the cards is that you can give them to the waiter and they can take them to the chef in the kitchen. So you don't have to worry about it getting lost in translation between you and the chef. They can literally have a look at your card and see what it is that you need to avoid. But I think in terms of, yes, gluten free is definitely getting a lot better than it was, even in the 4 years that we've been doing it.
That's amazing. I think it's really nice that and there's certain cuisines, like I know, Indian cuisine, it tends to be quite good because, there's, dals and vegetable curries, and I know there's no gluten in that. But then again, I suppose they've got naan breads, haven't they? So,
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, because my husband's Sikh, so
oh,
we
really?
yeah. So
Ah,
we love
okay.
Indian foods, and his sisters
Yes.
make us lovely food all the time. So yeah, Indian's really good for my son as well because there's not a lot of dairy and egg and soya in that either. So we find roast dinners are really good too. British cuisine is good for that doesn't tend to have too many of those foodstuffs in it either. But yeah, you do get to know, and that, but we can't. We used to love Chinese and Thai and food like that, but that has a lot of soya, some soy
Yeah.
sauce. So soy sauce contains gluten. Gluten's found in so many different products that you wouldn't even know that it was in. I mean, everybody knows about bread and pasta and pizza and cakes and stuff like that, but it's in stock cubes and sausages and soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, crisps, soup, fizzy drinks. There's so many
What?
things that you,
Fizzy
yeah,
drink?
yeah, cereals.
Wow.
And you have to look at toiletries and makeup and alcohol. And so, yeah, it's like a hidden ingredient in a lot of products.
I, wa- that's just made me think. Where, honestly, you have opened a whole can of worms in my mind. I've got so many questions. And when your daughter was diagnosed, were you given any pamphlets, were you signposted to in any direction? Because that's a lot of information overload.
Yeah, I think we spoke to a dietitian. I'm not going to be down on dietitians, but I don't. I won't. Having dealt with them with my son, I didn't find them that helpful. We're given leaflets, but it is kind of here's a pack, kind of go and get on with it yourself. I didn't find them overly helpful, but yes, I'm sure we were given leaflets to let us know. But I obviously didn't read them because I didn't get her any breakfast for the following morning. So yeah, that and then it's a very steep learning curve because it's like, oh, it's in this, it's in this, it's in this. So yeah, sausages are like really hard, and any non-meat substitutes, they use wheat is used as a filler for a lot of products, so to bulk it out. So you, as you know, with allergies as well, you just have to always
Yeah,
check the labels
absolutely,
constantly,
absolutely.
every time. So
I it was more the toiletries that I it was a bit like, what?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, you don't think of it being in
no,
things like that, but yeah,
absolutely never ever came to my attention. I want to find out a little bit more about EoE if that's okay with you.
yeah.
I just want, how did you come to find out about your son and the diagnosis?
So again, it was lockdown. I mean, I have a lot to thank COVID for actually because it got my daughter her diagnosis and my son. So with his allergies, he used to have an appointment with the allergy department about every 18 months. But most of the times we would see the allergy nurse who would do the skin prick test to check on the severity of his whether they were getting better or not. But during COVID, we had a telephone appointment with the consultant. And leading up to that, I noticed that he was cutting his food up into lots of really little, really small portion sizes. He was drinking a lot of water. When he ate anything like bread, like French stick or carrots or apples, he was saying it felt scratchy and it hurt his throat. So there were all these things going on. And being, again, on Instagram, part of the following a lot of people with allergies, I had heard of EoE before, luckily. So when I spoke to the consultant, I mentioned this to her and I said, I think straight away, she said, yes, it's EoE. And also he's had asthma since he was 5 or younger, but they diagnosed it at 5. But his asthma got really, really bad. It was when he was about 12, 11, 12. Literally, we couldn't have perfumes, we couldn't have candles, we used to have a real fire, we couldn't have that anymore. Washing powder, any strong smell was setting his asthma off. Luckily, we lived close to the hospital, but we were literally in A&E every 3 months, and nobody was really doing anything about it. And on his birthday, we ended up there Christmas Eve. But when I spoke to her, she said that's also another trend in adolescent boys for EoE is for the asthma to get really bad as well. So luckily, I got to speak to the consultant, which I might not have done if we hadn't had COVID and it was diagnosed. And again, he had to go up and have a gastroscopy as well, which is going under anaesthetic, putting a camera down their throat, taking biopsies, and it came back with the EoE. So then we had to do elimination diet because it's triggered normally by milk, egg, fish, wheat, soya, and I think there's one other thing, but I can't remember what it is. Anyway, because he was already avoiding milk and dairy, dairy and egg, they knew it couldn't be that, so he had to exclude wheat and soya at the same time as my daughter was diagnosed with celiac. So we couldn't have any of that, any of those four foods at all. And then we had to reintroduce wheat and then reintroduce soya to try and find out which one was. And we found out it was soya, so it was a long process. But living in Southampton, we're very, very lucky that they have a pioneering technique called a string test, whereas in other parts of the country, every time you have to have a gastroscopy to find out whether the inflammation's gone down. So you'd exclude the wheat, then you'd reintroduce it, then you'd have another gastroscopy. But with this string test, you just literally have to swallow a piece of string. He was on South Today at local news demonstrating it. So yeah, sorry if I waffled on too much, but
No,
that's
absolutely not.
kind of
I think I think people don't realize the severity and the anxiety-inducing life that we lead as allergy families, asthma families, clearly now
oh,
celiac disease families. You know,
yeah,
it's really, really sad. It's really, really
it
sad
is.
that, we go through such battles and such mental load on a day-to-day basis. Life is not as simple as it is for other people.
No, I mean, I don't know anyone appreciate that with, especially with the allergies, that your child could die every time they eat something, and people
Oh,
don't understand that. And then to have films and, the media trivializing it and making a joke out of people with allergies or celiac disease just makes my blood boil, then sets us so many steps backward, because it just makes people think again that it's a joke and it's not serious, and it is very serious. And it's, I feel for our children that have to live with this every day. I mean, I don't know what it feels like to worry
no.
about every time you eat something that's going to make you ill,
And
or
actually,
worse.
yeah, I mean, the recent, it's been in the media, the girl who lost her life when she went to Costa and had a drink.
Mm.
That story honestly was giving me nightmare for days because I was like, that could be any one of our children.
I know, it just makes me want to cry, and then it's like I don't want my son not to be able to go. We use Costa because it's always been safe for us, and she had the same allergy as my son. So, and it's like, do I mention to him or not? Because I don't want him to feel that he's too scared to go anywhere. But do I want to let him go there now? It's terrifying.
Yeah. What kind of things have people done to support you in your journey, Lisa? Let's end it on a high. Let's think about the people who've helped us along the process.
Well, we have an amazing family who go out of their way to always make safe food for us whenever we're there. They have older cousins. I remember when my son was young, there wasn't any advent calendars or Easter eggs. She made him one from scratch from dairy-free chocolate. We have, along the way, we've had amazing people with parties who've included my son, when they didn't need to, and have gone out of the way to have safe food and contact me. Amazing husband who supports us, and my kids. I just want to actually, yeah, probably end it on just saying how brilliant my kids are. They're so resilient. They deal with it every day, but they don't let it get them down. They support other people and advocate. And I think it's made them more resilient, more understanding, have more empathy for people. So, and probably appreciate life more. They're brilliant cooks. So yeah, is that enough?
No, that's beautiful. And like I said to you at the beginning of our chat, I really, worry about my kids, but listening to you and your journey with that, your teenage children, it really gives me hope and comfort knowing that they will be able to make, the decisions for themselves, and they'll still lead a really healthy and happy life and still be able to go on holiday with friends. It's really, really nice to know, isn't it? Because the future seems quite scary sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think it's nice to have other mums, out there who understand what it's like from a parent's point of view. I mean, I've met amazing people, like yourself, and people online who've been there, who understand, who just get it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate every second of our conversation. Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you asking me. So thank you. And it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.